on this episode of Action Film Face Off.
Before I wish for your annihilation, any last words?
We can roll, we just can't get back up.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
The Longbox Crusade presents
Action Film Face Off.
This episode is 1992 versus 1975. Two films enter, and the one film leaves.
Two men enter, one man leaves. Two men enter, one man leaves. Two men enter, one man leaves. Two men enter, one man leaves.
But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done. Now, if you know what you're worth, then go out and get what you're worth. But you got to be willing to take the hits.
Oh, welcome back to Action Film Face Off, the show where two random years are selected. My brother brings an action. Well, not really. It's martial arts madness. It's March, so Jason didn't bring a film. I didn't bring a film. What we did was we ran the randomizer. It gave us the 2 years. We took the 2 years to our friend Siskoid from the Fire and Water Podcast Network. It gave us 1992 and it gave us 1975. We gave those years to him. He gave us a couple of movies. We're gonna see how that comes out today. And just before we move on, I am Jared Albrecht, the Death Probe. My co-host is my brother Jason, the Weasel Skull. We are both military combat veterans who take our action seriously, but not too seriously. We're here to have some fun. Like I said, it's martial arts. We've got Siskoid back. Jason has some script to read, and then we'll talk to Siskoid. Yes, indeed. We're going to score each of today's films on a scale of 1 to 10 in 5 categories. Those categories are overall spectacle, the hero, best action scene, the story, and the villain. It's still not in that order. And just to make things interesting, it's not in that order on the script. I put it in a different order. That's still not in the right order. Oh my God, it's like Inception. Let that blow your mind. But at any rate, at the end, there will be a deduction round where up to 10 points can be subtracted from the film's total for whatever we determine is the low point of the movie. Thank you, Jason. And I'm introducing our annual sniper. It feels like March comes along awfully fast, doesn't it? Doesn't it? But it's always nice to have you here. Welcome back to the show, Siskoid from the Fire and Water Podcast Network.
Thanks for having me. This time I almost, like what I really wanted to do was to give you two movies that I hadn't seen, to actually be surprised as well. But, you fell on 1992. There was like an obvious one that we had to cover. Mm-hmm. So that plan went out the window. Oh, okay. Speaking of plans going out the windows, you didn't see this coming. You've been on the show before, so we've talked about favorite action films and all that. For your third appearance, I think, for Martial Arts Madness, I have provided a fast round questions for Siskoid in the realm of movies. So I want you to not think and just answer whatever pops in your head first. Okay.
Reflexes. We're going to talk about the best film from Jackie Chan.
I'm partial to Police Story. I've said this before.
Okay. Bruce Lee,
it's got to be Enter the Dragon because I don't rate the others very highly.
Oh, no!
Maybe Fists of Fury, although I do think it's kind of a Batman episode.
Like Fist of Fury, our Fist of Fury, or like Big Boss Fist of Fury?
The real Fist of Fury, Chinese Connection.
Right, yeah. Okay. And your final one, Donnie Yen, best movie.
Oof, well, that one's hard, but it's Ip Man, of course.
Okay.
It's got to be that one, but my very first one was is kind of still special to me. Killzone. Yeah, it's still one of my favorites from him.
I just saw Killzone 2, and I loved it, and so I was like, I gotta go see Killzone 1. And I went on YouTube just to see if by chance someone had like the whole movie on there. They didn't, but someone did post every fight scene from the movie. Okay. So I cheated and I watched that all the way through. I recently watched Killzone. That was a good movie.
I said it was my first one, but in reality it was like Hero, which came to the theaters. And he's in that. Yeah.
I forgot that he was in Hero.
Yeah. He's the fighter. He's the blind, the fight that doesn't really happen, where it's just rain. And they imagine their fight, and he's that guy.
Mind fights. I love them. Good answers. I might have to prepare some of these fast rounds for future guests too, Jason, that have been on before. You know,
I like it.
Just hit them quick. I like those choices.
You piloted this experiment, but turned out well, Siskoid. Thank you.
Yeah, I made it up in my head about 90 seconds ago, so that went pretty well. Okay. Now, before our two films enter the Videodome arena, which I'm fairly certain at this point has spikes on it, we are thrilled to kick off this episode with special shout-outs to our Crusaders Club members. These are the folks who've joined our crusade to get early access to special Longbox episodes and so much more. These are the folks who are reaping the benefits and giving some much appreciated support to the show.
And Helica Wolf.
Oh,
Auburn Elvis.
blast it or stash it.
Braxton Underwood.
Clinton Robinson.
Captain Entropy.
Dave the Battle Wagon Collins.
Ezra Gallo.
Gary V.
Gerald Green.
Jason Keene, very keen.
Jason Lady.
Jeremy L.
Jim Jarman, but I won't be doing the song.
Jim Meal.
Joe Thomas.
Elementary John Watson.
Josh Strickland.
Candace Ward.
Kathy Bright.
Mark Ross.
Maxwell Traver.
Miranda W.
P.D. Devins.
Paul Hicks.
Rick of Jeff and Rick Present.
Rob Morgan.
Ryan Daly.
Never heard of him. Samantha Maney.
Sean Urbanski.
Spidey 67.
Spreadsheet.
Steve Cronin.
Tim Price.
Tony Pennington.
And the Toronto Cop. If we missed one on the list, we apologize. Keep in mind, we record these episodes well in advance of release. If we release an edition, we'll add you soon. You can always email us at contact@longboxcrusade.com and we can get it all squared away. If you're asking yourself, how do I become a Crusaders Club member? It's very simple. Patreon.com/longboxcrusade. For as little as $1 a month, you get access to the amazing world of the Crusaders Club. I heard it's all the access. Come and check it out.
All right, talkie, too much talkie. Let's get on this train and ride it to our next musical number.
I like it. This episode, Siskoid was assigned the year of 1992, and he selected for me Hard Boiled. What did Siskoid select for you, Jason?
Well, I got 1975, and Siskoid put into our Videodome arena, Sholay.
All right. Well, we got a fine matchup for this one, folks. It's important to point out this isn't Jared versus Jason versus Siskoid or anything like that. You know, we let the randomizer pick the years, and we're just going to have a discussion about some beloved action films and find out what the consensus is for this episode's champion. Quick around the room on where we saw it. I, of course, had Hard Boiled on my Plex server. That was like required. And Sholay was new to me. So I actually found it on Internet Archive, has it for free with the American or English subtitles. And so that's how I watched it. Jason, how did you watch these films?
I have Hard Boiled on DVD and watched it that way. And for Sholay, I got it for $1.99 rental on Amazon Prime.
Excellent. Siskoid, are you an owner on both of these, or how did you do this?
Only Hard Boiled. I have it on DVD. I've had it for years. You know, it was one of my first Hong Kong action films that I had in my collection, and it sort of started the ball rolling, the hard ball rolling. So I watched it on DVD this time as well. And then because 1992, I had to go for Hard Boiled, and I was going like 75. What can compare? And so I went a little bit more west, a film from India, which usually we're doing, you know, like Pacific Rim. Mm-hmm. And Sholay was a big hit for me like a couple of years ago when I first saw it. For us in Canada, it's on Amazon Prime. You know, it comes with the subscription. So that's how I watched it.
Got that pipeline to India.
Everything. Fair.
I love it. All right, folks. This is your spoiler warning. If you've never seen Hard Boiled, I don't know what you've done with your life. If you've never seen Sholay, which was new to me and probably Jason as well, so that one you might want to check out. If you have, 3 hours and 20 minutes to spare, check them out because we're about to spoil them. We're going to play the little musical number here, and at the end of that, this becomes a spoiler zone. All right, welcome back. let me jump in with some quick info on 1992's Hard Boiled. Editor's note, this trailer has no voiceover and is just a series of music, gunshots, explosions, and everything awesome in the movie. Your cast and crew is as follows. It stars Chow Yun-fat and Tony Leung, which I'm probably mispronouncing, and Cisco will tell me how it goes later. It's directed by John Woo. Synopsis, not really sure. I've seen it a few times, still unclear. But this is what I got from it. I think I'm overcomplicated. I don't think it's that complicated. Tequila is a hard-boiled cop trying to stop a bad crime boss guy. And that bad crime boss guy is trying to recruit an amazing assassin as his right-hand man. Turns out the amazing assassin is Alan, an undercover cop. Alan and Tequila team up to kill the bad guy, crime boss guy, and his goons. And I mean all his goons, and probably a whole bunch from the goon temp agency, because someone has to save that hospital and those babies. Okay, things aren't looking so good for the hospital. All right, here is your interesting trivia as I found it. I like this one. These are all things I found on IMDb. Take them with a grain of salt, but I did find them interesting. During the filming of the scene in which Tequila is running down the exploding hallway with the baby in his arms, and explosions are at his back, he shot that twice. John Woo wasn't happy with the first take. He thought the explosions were too far behind. So on the second take, he took control of the explosives button and set it off far closer than Chow was expecting. John Woo said he was really running for his life. Now, Chow apparently was professional enough to ask, how did it look? How did that shot look? But then he turned around and said, that mother. So he's a pro, but he also knew he was getting messed with. All right, next one. The tea house, where the first sequence was filmed, was demolished 5 days after they were done shooting. During filming, many neighbors called the police to complain every night about gunfire, but the cops were fans of the film and of Woo, so they allowed him to complete shooting without any hassles. All right, guys, I've done this before. I'm going to do it again. It is now time to guess the body count for my third fun fact of trivia. Jason looks completely bewildered. You can see him trying to do math in his head. Siskoid looks a little more composed, ready to go. Siskoid, if you had to guess, how many people got killed?
I would be cheating because I already know. I already know the answer to this.
Oh, he knows the answer. Okay,
I know the answer.
We'll turn this into a game for Jason. Jason, if you get it within plus or minus 20, I'll say you've done a darn fine job. How many people got killed?
This is like Price is Right.
That's right.
Okay. Now, in full disclosure, like I watched this film late last night and I might have dozed off. Well, I did doze off. I dozed off at the warehouse fight. And they were killing people when I dozed off, and I woke back up, and they were still killing people.
It's a pretty high number. I'll give that hint.
I'm going to go with 120.
Higher.
But I didn't exceed it. So
all right. Okay. So I see the number on IMDb. Siskoid, what do you got it at?
Yeah, IMDb says 307.
Oh my gosh, that was way off.
So it's a lot. I was surprised when I saw that. I was looking at some of those trivia notes, and when I saw that
307,
when I saw the head count, I was like, really?
Just let the bodies hit the floor, John Woo.
One of the things about Hong Kong cinema is that a lot of it is improvised. You've got a script, but, like this movie started out as a story about a villain who poisons baby formula, which is why there's a hospital and a baby scene. And then it completely changed because Chow Yun-fat didn't think that was a very good idea. And John Woo himself thought the idea was repugnant. So they kept changing it. There's like a secondary villain that's brought in. That wasn't in the script. So the actors and the director kept changing things around to make it more exciting, to make it more, spectacular. And so sometimes maybe, Jared doesn't quite know what's happening.
Sometimes I get confused.
Maybe there's a reason for that. Okay.
So that makes me feel better. Much like you, Cisco, I got it on DVD within the first year of owning a DVD player.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I've heard such good things. I'm going to watch it. And I was not disappointed, but I've seen it so many times. I'm still like, not exactly sure about all the details.
But if you can believe it, it wasn't that much of a success in China, in Hong Kong. It was a bigger success here in North America. And that's why John Woo moved to Hollywood after this. So this wasn't supposed to be his last film, his last Chinese film, but just like Hollywood invited him because he was having this tremendous success with Hard Boiled. Whereas in China, maybe they were thinking, well, all this heroic bloodshed genre is kind of played out, and they liked other movies better, like The Killer or some of his earlier work. So he stayed in Hollywood for a while.
And now I will give you the rundown on 1975 Sholay.
Editor's note, this one is not in English.
कितने आदमी थे सरदार? 2 आदमी थे। ठाकुर साहब, शायद ही कोई ऐसा जेल हो जिसमें ये दोनों ना गए हों। ये वीरू है और ये जयदेव। दोनों के दोनों पक्के बदमाश, 1 नंबर के चोर, छठे हुए गुंडे हैं।
मुझे तो सब पुलिस वालों की सूरतें एक जैसी लगती हैं।
मुझे गब्बर चाहिए, जिंदा।
गब्बर सिंह? वो मशहूर डाकू? जब बच्चा रात को रोता है तो माँ कहती है बेटे सो जा नहीं तो गब्बर सिंह आ जाएगा।
हाँ, वही। मुझे सिर्फ गब्बर चाहिए।
जो डर गया समझो मर गया।
कोई पुरानी दुश्मनी?
ये पूछना तुम्हारा काम नहीं। लोहा गर्म है, मार दो हथौड़ा।
साहब अभी भी वक्त है, सोच लीजिए।
I'm going to apologize before I try to pronounce these names, but I'll give it a go here. The cast and crew included Amitabh Bachchan, Dharmendra, and Sanjeev Kumar. It was directed by Ramesh Sippy, and I'm sure I nailed all of those first try.
I'm confident on the Ramesh Sippy part.
So for the synopsis, it might be easier for me to summarize what didn't happen in this film.
I told Jason I'm looking forward to this. I'm like, how are you going to summarize this film? There's so much going on.
Here goes. So Viru and Jai are two no-good criminals who have been in and out of every Indian prison in the country. They have one unique skill, however. Be it with bullets, blades, or their fists, they can fight like tigers. And this is a skill that former police inspector Thakur needs, as his remote village is under constant assault from the evil marauder Jabber. It seems that in the past, Viru, Jai, and the inspector had to form an uneasy alliance for mutual survival against some train bandits. Now the three have come together again to take down the sadistic Jabber. It's a tale of revenge, romance, bromance, and redemption as Viru and Jai do what they do best. And in the meantime, find love and acceptance in the bucolic village. And there are some musical numbers too.
So I'm going to have to look up bucolic then.
That's a good word. That's a good word. I think this is one that people who liked, like this year, there was a lot of fuss about the Bollywood film RRR.
I love it.
It's amazing. Well, this is kind of the ancestor of that. You know, it's about a bromance, and you got musical numbers, and it's very similar in many ways, and for good reason, because this was such a popular film for India. We'll talk about that more as Jason goes along.
Well, for my trivia nuggets, I've got 3, and the first one is the initial box office receipts were so low that the film was going to be pulled like within the first couple of weeks from cinemas. But the word of mouth grew so much that a sudden spike in attendance made Sholay India's highest grossing film for 20 years. It started slow, but like a train, it gathered speed. My second trivia nugget is the dramatic coin flip at the fatal shootout on the bridge was inspired by Gary Cooper's Garden of Evil. And the third one is the death of Thakur's family was inspired by Sergio Leone's Once Upon a Time in the West.
Yeah, that one's almost shot for shot.
Yep, they said they use same camera angles and everything.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. I mean, this movie was so popular, guys, in India. Like, we'd never heard of it, right? We don't know. But, when Jason says it's like, okay, it became like the biggest seller, for 20 years or so. That's because it stayed in theaters for all that time.
Crazy. Jeez. Yeah.
It's a different world in India. But there are many other, instances. I'll get to it when we talk about the villain. And I mean, much of this has like staying power for Indian cinema. So, it's kind of crazy. I mean, people didn't just like the music. They liked the dialogue so much that they were selling audio cassettes of the entire film, and people would listen to the movie while they were doing chores and that kind of stuff.
Nothing wrong with that. Jared and I used to do that growing up.
That's
right. Just a tape from the TV.
Exactly.
Yeah, I've done that. So, and there's been a female cast remake of this. There's been a parody of Sholay with Amjad Khan, who plays the villain, also reprising the role in the parody movie much later. It's been sampled in many, many songs, many other projects. So, yeah, I guess it's a big thing in India. So, welcome to the club, everyone.
Man, and what a club it is. Now that we have the basics on today's contestants.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Test your might.
Let's get ready to rumble!
Fight.
It's a street fight.
Here we go. All right, guys, let's talk about Match Game. It's the game within the game. We have 2 films, 5 categories. Jason has not seen my scores. I have not seen his scores. We can have up to 10 possible matches. So now is the time to guess how many matches are Jason and I going to have. And speaking of scores, it is on a scale of 1 to 10. And just as a reminder, if we give it a 5, 5 is average. It's in the middle. It means okay. Something you'd see on a decent made-for-TV movie. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, you got a great film. 4, 3, 2, 1, you have things to work on. Having said all that, let's get into round one.
Feel kind of invincible.
Round one is the story. And we are going to start in 1992 with Hard Boiled, and we're going to start with Siskoid and his thoughts on the story, such as it is.
Yeah. No, I like a good undercover cop story, which this has, right? But I don't think Hard Boiled has such a strong story necessarily. This one's more about style. I think there are better stories that John Woo worked on, like The Killer, I mentioned, A Better Tomorrow. Those are maybe stronger stories, but this one is, let's look at this set piece and how clever it might be and the things they might do. So there's writing in there, right? I mean, you have to write, even though a lot of it is improvised, like Chow Yun-fat gliding down the staircase, and that wasn't planned. It's just stuff we're going to do because we're doing things. Let's try this. But the idea of the different set pieces and where they take place and so on, I think are pretty clever. I think the story as itself is just like, a normal cop, like buddy cops. One is an undercover cop. They don't really know each other. They fight Marvel style and then team up against the villains. It's a pretty simple thing, really. I don't think that's why we're watching Hard Boiled.
I think you're right. And I'll get Jason's thoughts. Jason, your thoughts on the story of Hard Boiled?
There was just enough story here to hold it together from piece to piece to piece. Character development was kind of perfunctory. You had the tropes. Tequila's kind of the almost burned out detective having some sort of relationship issue with his girlfriend, who's kind of the middle person between the undercover cop. The undercover cop, who I thought was actually the more interesting of the two characters, really having this crisis of conscience because he's been undercover and he's had to do so many terrible things that he's just so disillusioned and just wants it to end. I thought the rival gang war between the two gangs, the one that Alan is with the older uncle-like figure, I thought the older uncle-like figure was kind of interesting. But again, the dynamics didn't last very long, so you don't really get too deep into any of the characterization or backstory. It's just enough to get you from one set action piece to the other. And that's where you really earn your money with this film, is we'll see when we get to the spectacle part.
Fair enough. I agree. In fact, so much so, I don't have anything to add. We can roll right into 1975, right back to Siskoid. The story of Sholay. So lay it out there for us, my friend.
One movie didn't have enough story. This one maybe has too much, right? There's a lot going on. This is everything to everyone. It's got romance. It's got action. It's got comedy, some broad comedy, some more character comedy. It's got tragedy, musical numbers. It's got a lot of stuff. It's a Western set in India, It's got a lot of everything. And I think for the most part, I wouldn't jettison any of it except the very broad comedy that takes place in prison with the Nazi, there's like a Hitler-like warden. He's foolish. He's sort of a Elmer Fudd or a Yosemite Sam, and they're kind of Bugs Bunny in this. That whole part, if you remove that, doesn't really affect the picture. And that's the bit I would remove, like in the first half hour. Otherwise, you're thinking, well, why are we looking at this villager? But then it all pays off. It's like, well, that villager, and he's got his problems with his son, and then his son finally leaves home as his father wanted, but gets killed. And you're always pulling between comedy and tragedy. Like for me, like the character of Basanti, there's two romances going on. There's a tragic one and a comic one. Well, the comic one, you think, well, this is a very annoying comic character, Basanti. But by the end, she's like the most touching part of the film, So it's always like pulling you back and forth and eventually paying off. So I feel like this story, there's too much story, but it is very full and rich. For me, it never lets me go.
I think the most important thing to remember is that Basanti is not a chatterbox. She will tell you.
She will tell you she is not a chatterbox.
Well said, though. Well said, Siskoid. I think there's a lot in here. I think there's a lot of variety in here. There's something for everyone, but I never once was bored. So there's that. Jason?
Whew, yeah, there's a lot going on in this film. If you watch a piece of it, it's like watching a Sergio Leone. If you watch another piece of it, it's like watching Mel Brooks.
Yeah.
It takes you on this journey for 3 hours and 20 minutes and throws in some musical numbers in there, which okay. I mean, if you like musicals, hey, we got you back. It's a love story. You know, if you like Romeo and Juliet, if you like Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, if you like Gary Cooper Westerns, if you like spaghetti Westerns, if you like the Wild Bunch, it's got it in here. I did see RRR, like we talked about it before, and I can definitely see how this movie inspired that one. And I feel like I'm getting a little bit of a cultural education on the Indian film goer. And it seems to me like they want to get their money's worth. They want...
Right.
Like,
RRR is just as long,
it
yeah.
is just as long and just as entertaining, and the style is very similar. So it was a little bit at first hard for me to take, but by the end of it, like Jared, I have to admit, I was never bored. I was always entertained.
Excellent. Well, I think there's nothing left to do but score these films. And Jason and I are going to give our 1 to 10s, and then Siskoid's going to get out the sniper bullet and decide who's going to get the bonus point. Jason, let's go back to 1992 hard-boiled scale of 1 to 10. You gave the story.
I'm going to give it a 6. Barely enough to hold it together, but it does its job.
Match game number 1. I also gave it a 6. Let's go to 1975 Sholay's 1 to 10.
This one was a harder one for me to gauge because I kind of went through the paces on it. At the end, I gave it a 7. I think it's very strong, and maybe I'm being a little unfair to it with a little cultural bias, but that's where I landed at the end of the day.
All right, we're not too far apart. Maybe it's in a better mood or something. I gave it an 8. I just thought certainly there's enough story there to get an 8. This is a lot of story. So, Siskoid, in terms of story, which movie do you think is stronger, sir?
I think it's clear that Sholay must win this one. It's just got more story and maybe more impact in terms of story. Maybe not in terms of action, but in terms of story, certainly.
Yeah, this was story film face-off. You'd have your clear winner right there. But that is the end of round 1, which is story, and we're going to get into round 2, which is the hero. So, Jason, round 2.
Nobody's bitch.
All right, round 2, like Jared said, it's all about the hero and the hero supporting cast. We got 2 really good films here. Let's talk about Tequila and Alan and others from Hard Boiled. And Siskoid, kick us off.
There's some interesting characters. I know that Chow Yun-fat wasn't too happy that some of his character was downplayed across the changes that they made because he felt it was a little thin in a way. So he's a cop, but he plays the clarinet in a jazz club. He's sort of ready to throw in the towel, but he's super cool is the thing. He used to be sensitive, but now he's hard. He's eating at the crime scene. He's always got a toothpick in his mouth. They call him Tequila, for God's sake. So, and he wants a big fish before he steps off, kind of thing. He like finally gets someone, but he steps on that undercover operation. Yeah, Tequila is very, very cool. But then you've got Alan, who kind of steals the show. Tony Leung steals the show in this. We saw him recently in the Shang-Chi movie, so that's where people might know him now. But he plays kind of a character that the undercover cop, the tortured undercover cop, is something he's going to play again in 10 years in Infernal Affairs, which is a trilogy of films that the Scorsese movie that was based on them. The Departed. So The Departed is kind of a scrunched up version of this Chinese trilogy, which I think is better. But he plays the undercover cop in that. The DiCaprio character, I guess. He's always very good. He's not just good in this or in that. He's my favorite male actor of all time in any country, in any genre. I love Tony Leung. So in this, he steals the show. He's got all the emotional weight of the film on his shoulders. But I want to give a shout out to Philip Chang in this, was the head inspector.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's good.
Because he's playing himself. He's an actual inspector who used to run undercover cops, and so he's in this. So
I love it.
Yeah, and John Woo's in this as well as sort of the mentor figure. He's the one that runs the bar. So they're sort of side characters, of course. As is the female lead, but she gets like defensive with the kids and like save the babies, and so she's got stuff to do as well. But Tony Leung to me is steals the show. But when you think about Hard Boiled, you think about Chow Yun-Fat and how cool he is in this.
Absolutely,
Chow Yun-Fat does equal cool. Jared, what do you got?
Yeah, well, Cisco had said Tony Leung's not my favorite actor all time, but he's very good. I'm a Christopher Walken man, you know that. But back to the topic at hand. Yeah, these are very cool characters. Like, cool is just the word that keeps coming up. They're just cool, right? Chow Yun-Fat's cool. And then Tony Leung, you kind of get to know him as the movie progresses. And then they make such an awesome duo at the end. So there's kind of a theme between our two movies of like that bromance action duo thing going on. I thought that was pretty neat. One of my favorite things about the hero of Chow Yun-Fat is that I didn't really realize until this viewing, which was probably third or fourth viewing, like I said. Like, I'm always watching him shoot his guns and spin around, whether it's here or Replacement Killers or whatever, which is an underrated film, by the way. But anyways, I liked that they gave him the moments of detective work. He's in the library and he's piecing together kind of how this all went down. He put the shape of the book in the blood spatter. He goes and finds the book. He finds where the gun was hidden in it. And that might not have made 100% of sense to me, but it was cool to watch.
Those librarians don't want that book. They want it on the shelf.
That's right. Who put that book on? Anyways, there was another time where he did some detective-y stuff. I can't remember the specifics around it, but he did that again another moment. And I was like, okay, that's something I didn't really pay attention to in the first couple of viewings. So, yeah, very cool.
Yeah, I agree. I like that scene in the library as well. And even that, he looked cool doing it, didn't he?
He always looks cool.
He always looks cool. All right, let's talk about Sholay. We got Viru, we got Jai, and we got the armless inspector. Siskoid, what did you think of them?
Yeah, and even Basanti, she gets her moments. She's comic relief at the beginning, but she gets to be the star of a couple of action scenes, or at least I hope that dance number at the end is considered an action scene. It's certainly as tense as any bomb diffusing kind of things. They're rascals. They're having fun. They're singing songs while driving motorcycles. They got that coin bit, which I know they stole from a Western, but still, we're talking spoilers here. Jai is putting forward the two choices, then he flips the coin. He always gets his way, which is always the most action-based possible version of events. And that's because he's got a two-headed coin. And that's how he sacrifices his life at the end. So, it's like you think it's just a bit, and then, eventually it's tragedy. So it keeps pulling you between those two emotions, which I always love. And ultimately, perhaps Thakur is the main hero because it's his quest to defeat that villain, to take revenge on that villain. But and they're just kind of helpers, and also the ones who have the romances. They helped
a lot.
Well, the guy is armless,
That's fair.
They're the arms in a way. So I mean, they're fun. I don't think they have as much depth as the Tony Leung character in Hard Boiled, or they're not necessarily as cool as Chow Yun-Fat in Hard Boiled, but they're differentiated enough. There's one who's darker, there's one who's lighter, one is more comedy, the other, So they're nice drama masks.
Jared, pile on to that if you can.
You can't really. I mean, that's why we have Siskoid on. He's spot on. Like, the only thing I'll add about Viru and Jai, they're a little cartoony at first. Then they get like hardcore action, and they're frankly they're badasses. And then they get recruited. And I think my favorite moment for Viru and Jai was when they first get to the village, and they're like, "Yeah, we're going to rob that safe and bail."
Yeah,
that's what we're going to do. And then I think it was the daughter-in-law who caught him doing it. Was that right?
Yeah, the widow. Yeah.
Yeah. And basically just made them feel like crap. And they were like, you know what? No, we're going to stick this one out. Like that.
And also, I'm now in love with this woman. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're not heartless. Right. Is the thing, right?
Yeah. They have a soul to them, and they're just fun. So yeah, everything that Siskoid said, plus that one moment really made it for me.
Well, even at the very beginning, when they're arrested on that train after Thakur is shot, and that's the first time they flip the coin. It's like we can either make sure he gets to a hospital and risk going to prisons ourselves or bail right now and be assured of our freedom. And they do the right thing.
Especially since he knows that the coin is going to hit.
Yeah. Jai does the right thing.
Nothing left to do but to score them. So, Jared, what are you giving Tequila and Alan in Hard Boiled?
It's a good, strong duo, and I'm going to give it a good, strong 8 out of 10. I think if there was a more cohesive, stronger story, they could have easily risen to 9 and 10. So no slight on the actors when I say the 8. I think their performances with what they gave were good. They were physical. We'll talk about that, certainly. Strong 8s for me.
Yeah, I wasn't quite as kind as you. I gave them a 7. I think that they did a really good job with what they had. Would have liked to seen some more character development. But like you said, that's more on the script and the director than it is on the actor, who turned in 2 solid performances. Going back over to Viru and Jai, what are we giving them?
I thought they were almost as good as our duo in Hard Boiled, and I gave the duo in Hard Boiled an 8, so I gave Vero and Jai a 7.
I thought they were just as good, so I gave them a 7 as well. So there's our second match game. And this was kind of tough. I'm interested to see where Siskoid puts the sniper bullet here. So Siskoid, who's getting the round?
Yeah, well, the pressure point, which is what I like to give.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. It's the
we forget every year.
Yeah, every year we go through.
Well, they're more shoot 'em ups than there are martial arts films. There's a little bit of martial arts, but not that much. I also went back and forth, but at the end of the day, one of the things that I feel is missing from the universe is maybe another movie with tequila in it. A couple. I wish Chow Yun-fat had been able to maybe make a series out of this. I would love to see his gun fu character and be tequila, track that character. So I'm going to give my pressure point to Hard Boiled.
Nice. Did you ever play Stranglehold?
I was just going to ask him that.
That's right.
I wrote Stranglehold in my notes.
Well, there is a video game based on Hard Boiled and with tequila in it. And I have not played it. I did not have the proper console, but I know of it. That's not the same as having a movie with Chow Yun-fat in it.
No, you're right, but it is fun. I did play it, and I did beat it.
Yeah.
I did too, yeah.
It is very fun to control, slide down the banisters and roll across. It's so much fun.
All right, well, I'm wrapping up my hero round and passing it to you, Jared.
That must mean it's time for round 3.
Now, this really pisses me off to no end.
Round 3 is the villain, or villains, or villainy, or villains. Let's talk bad guys. Let's go to Hard Boiled 1992. Jason, you get to go first this time. This is definitely where I bog down and have the hardest time with things until the end. I'm very clear on who the bad guy is at the end, especially when he kills those innocent people. Even his own dude was like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to remember the name. Help me out, Siskoid.
So Johnny, played by Anthony Wong.
Yeah. Donnie. Yeah, Johnny is the main bad guy. He's the young up-and-comer crime lord that takes out the kindly old uncle crime lord to become the number 1 crime lord in Hong Kong. And he is ruthless. He's on a recruiting spree trying to get whatever talent he can find. That's how he comes across Alan. Hey, he was all right. He hit all the tropes as a bad guy. Not a very interesting character. If I had to choose between him and the uncle, I like the uncle. I wanted to hear more about his backstory. What made him tick? What got him into that business? Didn't really care so much about Johnny. Now, Johnny's big heavy, the guy with the eye patch.
Eye patch guy.
Eye patch guy.
Mad Dog is the name of the character.
That's right, Mad Dog.
Mad Dog was that guy. You could make a whole movie about Mad Dog.
Well, there have been many, in fact. Well, not necessarily about Mad Dog specifically, but Kwok Choi, who plays him, was one of the 5 Venoms. So, the Shaw Brothers had many movies with a cast of fighters, including him, and he was just supposed to be the action director on this. John Woo thought the same thing as you. He's like, well, Johnny doesn't seem much of a physical threat. He's kind of a whiny yuppie or something. Yeah, so, hey, Kwok Choi or Philip Kwok Choi, they've all got many names in Hong Kong cinema. How about we make you one, the main heavy? He's very cool. You know, like when he's lighting his cigar on the flames of the destroyed cars, and very, very cool. So good thing they had him in there.
Yeah. And I'll just wrap it up with that, because without him, this would not have scored as well as it did.
I concur. Anything to add, Squid?
Well, I love an honorable villain, which is what Mad Dog actually was. Despite his name, he looked at Johnny and was like, "What are you doing?" It's like blowing up a hospital full of babies and killing innocent people for no reason. That guy was the Mad Dog, you know? Mm-hmm. So I feel like the movie kind of betrays him. It's like we're heading for a confrontation between Tony Leung's character, Alan, and Mad Dog, and then Johnny kills him. So it's like we get robbed of a final fight where one of our heroes does the deed, or maybe just reconciles with him, or, teams up with him, and then he dies more heroically, but this doesn't happen. So I feel there's a flaw in the script at that point.
Excellent points. Let's go to the villainy of Sholay in 1975. Jason.
That guy was a villain. That guy was a straight up villain. There was nothing redeemable about that man. He was evil for evil's sake. When he was doing an evil deed, he had like an extra evil gear he could put it in to get going extra evil. This man was arrested, escaped from prison, hunted down, and murdered this police officer's entire family, and then captures him and cuts off both of his arms. That's about as evil gets. Man, I've got to admit, I think he was probably the strongest character, except for maybe the inspector. The two of them, from a gravitas perspective, maybe not the spectacle perspective, but the gravitas perspective, were very compelling. I'll throw in an extra trivia nugget, because I guess he was so popular that, like, in the UK, they were doing biscuit commercials with the actor. He made a mark. He really did.
Oh, yeah. Right. Yeah. Well, I think those were commercials probably ran in India, because that's probably where they know it. But yeah, they say the sales for Britannia biscuits doubled, apparently.
Well, they were filmed in India, but they were popular even in the UK.
Okay. Well, so
yeah,
definitely.
You've got the mic, Cisco. What do you think about the villainy of Sholay?
Gabbar Singh. Yeah, it's like his revenge is insane. And then all through the movie, like, he's got this little lair in the canyon sort of thing, right? With pillars, and he keeps tying people up onto that. He's so cruel. The first time we really meet him in the present day, like, his goons kind of screwed up and didn't come back with the ransom. And so he plays Russian roulette with them, and then they win. Somehow the three guys win, and he still shoots them. He likes to play with his food. He likes to toy with people. And at the end, when he's got Veru, tied up, and he forces Basanti to dance on broken glass, etc., like dance for his life. And he's always playing games, but he expects that he's gonna win. And at the end, well, like all good villains, he needs to go. So, yeah, he's great. He's great.
You got that right. Yeah. I just want to underscore that scene with the Russian roulette. Like, those guys beat the odds. It was like he was mad about that. Like, I wondered when I saw that scene, like, what had happened if the cylinder had been moved just a little bit more? Like, if one guy had died, would he have been happy? Or two guys? Right. But since nobody died, it seemed to make him more mad, and he just killed them all. Boom, boom, boom. And that's when you get to know him. Yeah, he's a bad guy. Let's score these things, Jason. Back in 1992, we had Hard Boiled, the villainy.
Well, like we said, Johnny was a little lackluster, but Mad Dog bumps it up to a 7 for me.
Match game 3. If I was Johnny alone, I would probably have 5, maybe a 6, maybe just a push above made for TV status. But yeah, Mad Dog got to the 7. Sholay, 1975. I have a feeling you're going to be a little higher than me on this one, but I ain't going to fight you on it. What you got?
I didn't go crazy high. I did give him an 8. I thought he was solidly in above average category, nearing elite category.
Okay, and I had him at a 7. I liked him a lot. Our discussion of him makes me think I might have gone a little low, but I'll be honest with what I got on the paper. I have him at a 7, and that means it's just time for Siskoid to go with his pressure point.
Well, I'll fix your mistake.
There we go.
Well, pressure point, Gabbar Singh from Sholay.
Yeah, no, I get it, and that makes perfect sense, and that's the end of round 3.
All right, I'm going to pick it up here at round 4. This is where it's getting fun, and we're talking about the spectacle.
Dead or alive, you are coming with me.
We're talking about fight, stunts, action. We're talking about music. We're talking about soundtrack. We're talking about lighting. We're talking about cinematography. Anything that's really cool or makes a movie really cool, we're throwing it in the blender. We're hitting it on puree. Siskoid, talk to me about the spectacle of Hard Boiled.
Well, this is a movie where just I'm going to call it Alka-Seltzer. I know it's like like just tapping a drink to make it fizz is an action moment. There's no real rules of cinema that John Woo follows. You know, as we go into fades, we go into weird moments of music or lighting, or everything is spectacle in this movie, basically. You know, it's almost too much. And I do like the music. I think there's got some driving beats in there, but also some jazz to counterpoint what is going on. And no one does squibs like John Woo. It's like every bullet explodes. There's sparks everywhere. And these sequences very often maybe go too long in a way, but it's always entertaining. You know, it's like the stuff with the bird cages. I don't want to get into the set pieces because obviously that's the next category, but there's such variety in there. Every scene is not shot the same way. And John Woo really wanted to, in his movies, he tries to film everything in sequence because, and this is his reasoning, because then he can be sure that each successive sequence is more spectacular than the last. So if you do your climax first, and then you know, maybe you run the risk of doing an intro scene later that is better because now you're in the groove. And so destabilizes the movie. He always wants it to drive better and better and better. I think he achieved this here.
I agree. I think there's just an art form to the violence. I always go back to that scene at the beginning with tequila covered in flour and then pulling that trigger. He spits out the toothpick and he's like, I'm not arresting this. just pulls the trigger and then the blood splatter over that white flour. It's like an art piece. It's like a Jackson Pollock almost.
And that was one of Chow Yun-Fat's ideas, the flour. So, you know,
really
John
cool.
was listening to his actors and it's a collaboration.
Yeah. Very interesting. Very cool moment. But it's not my turn to talk. It's Jared's.
If I'd got my turn, I would have talked about John Woo and the flower, but the first time I watched this movie, that's what, like, I'm watching the shootout in the tea house, and the first question I have is, you know, it's hard for tough bad guys to look tough holding bird cages. But then it gets going, and then the flower thing happens, and I was like, that's when I knew I was watching something completely different. I was like, okay, you know, like Jason said, an art form out of violence. But from a macro view of spectacle, yeah, this is a movie that just provides spectacle after spectacle after spectacle. A lot to be said for what Sisko had told us about shooting in sequence so that he can keep building and building and building. And it's definitely on the screen. It's explosions. It's ridiculous sometimes. It's slow-mo when two guys cross each other in a hallway for reasons I don't know why. But, you know, it's like you half the time you're like, why are we doing this? But then your brain goes, I don't care. You know, it's so much fun. Jason, you may mention this in your action scene, but I did clock a scene where they did a single shot now with Tequila and Alan down a hallway, into an elevator, down another hallway in one shot. And they didn't cut away for quite some time. And I was like, that was impressive.
Yeah.
So if you're into sort of the single shot, the constant action, creative gunplay with an artistic sense to it that John Woo kind of always brings, it's going to get a really, really high score from me.
And a note on that elevator, you know, that one shot, when they're in the elevator 20 seconds while the crew resets that corridor because there isn't an elevator moving.
Okay. I had that question because I was like, were they in there long enough? Yeah. I was like, were they in there long enough?
There's no room for the camera to be that far back, I think, in the elevator. So it's It's like, let's reset the whole thing. That whole sequence in the hospital, there's so many bits and pieces of it that are spectacular, and that one really catches your attention. The reason John Woo did that is just to change things up because the crew was getting tired. Okay, you're all tired. Let's just do this one in a oneer with just one mobile camera. And so some people can rest. You're really improvising on set and coming up with these pretty crazy shots,
Just all that coordinated action. And on top of that, credit to the actors, they're doing a fairly emotional scene where Alan has just accidentally killed a fellow cop. And they're processing that while they're going through it. It was just incredible. And Jason, I'm certain, has, good luck, by the way, splitting up action scenes in the next round. But I'm done talking about it. We can go to Sholay.
All right, let's talk about the spectacle of Sholay. And there wasn't light on spectacle there either, was it, Siskoid?
I think this one is more like the sort of spectacle you get from a Western, from a musical, because it's all in there. Well, I don't know if the print that you saw had these like goofy 3D effects. Sometimes things would fly at the camera. Those were added in 2013, so they weren't part of the movie originally. But it does give a weird. You can tell the print is like odd colors, and the blacks aren't quite dark enough. And I think that's maybe that 3D process they got through at some point. I'm not sure it's a flaw. I think it's part of the goofy charm of this thing. But the way the camera moves is pretty avant-garde for 1975. The 70s action movies weren't necessarily that very. The camera was more fixed than this, so there's a lot of movement, especially like in that train scene.
Yeah, definitely.
A lot of dance numbers. The color festival. You get the big landscapes, which are part of the sort of Western mythos of this. Nice music. Again, I think both of these movies have great soundtracks. So in terms of spectacle, it's a little more. It's less stylish in certain ways, but just as stylish in others. So I think there's a lot to look at and listen to, etc. And they really use that village to its maximum effect as well. I think they shot over 3 years and they kept going back to that village. And eventually they changed the name of the village to have Sippy in it. Like it's not,
Yeah, I read that somewhere. Yeah. Some sort of
it's like that's part of our history now that we were part of this movie for so many years, and then the movie went on to have major success. So it's got the kind of spectacle. I think musicals and action films have a lot in common because there's choreography. You need to be athletic, especially martial arts, for example. So I think you get in the 3 hours and 20 minutes of this, you get a lot of production value.
Nice. What say you, Jared?
The biggest thing it has working against it in terms of spectacle is its 3 hour and 20 minute runtime. Its biggest accomplishment is it held my attention for the 3 hour and 20 minute runtime, which is an absolute kudo to the spectacle. Like Cisco had said, you have action spectacle, you have dance spectacle, you have color spectacle, you have sweeping vistas spectacle. It's all there. Whenever the prison scene was very Mel Brooksian, it throws enough variety at you to keep you interested. And, if you had told me I was going to watch a 3 hour and 20 minute Indian film from 1975, I would.
You did tell me I was going to watch a 3 hour and 20 minute Indian movie.
I would have guaranteed you I would have picked up my phone at some point, just kind of surfed Twitter and kind of, checked in on the film. And I didn't. Even during the musical numbers, I didn't okay, I'll wait till the song's over. I paid attention the whole time. And that is saying something.
That is indeed saying something. But what I really need right now for you to say is your score for Hard Boiled.
Hard Boiled, Jason. It's been a while, but Jared's going to crack open a can of 10.
Flawless victory.
Because this is a spectacle movie from the start to the finish. When I saw it, I had never seen anything like it. And since then, I've seen things similar in that vein, but not quite as full speed as that. So I'm giving it a 10.
That is a full tilt boogie. And although I didn't give it a 10, I am not far off. I gave it a 9. So we're seeing pretty much eye to eye. This is elite category of action, folks. Elite category of spectacle. But what about Sholay? Is that in the elite category as well, in your opinion, or
it's very, very close. Like I said, the thing it had working against it is very, very, very long, but it's a big plus that can hold me that long. It didn't get a 10, but I gave it a very nice 8. I said this, it kept my attention and it was great to look at and listen to.
Well, we have our next match game because I gave it an 8 as well. I thought that it was just like you said. I saw 3 hours and 20 minutes and I was like, Cisco! No, I was cursing his name. I was like, but I sat there and my mind didn't wander, didn't pick up the phone or anything. They kept me hooked. So well done. Well above average, nearing that elite category. Cisco, he can push it to that elite category, though, with the sniper bullet if he wants to, or he can give it to, with his pressure point. Pressure point. Or he can give it that pressure point to hard boiled. Which way are you going to go?
Well, I'm very impressed that you enjoyed Sholay so much because when I picked it, I kind of heard you screaming before. It's like, yeah.
You did mess with me, didn't you? That's what you're saying.
I mean, no, but I also, when I started watching it again, I was like those first sequences with the comedy in the prison. I was going, oh my God, the boys are gonna hate me. When are we gonna get to some more action? Because it's interspersed. Like the end has a lot of action, but there's a lot of moments of drama and comedy. It's not wall to wall action, and this is action film Face Off. So I've got to give the spectacle to Hard Boiled. I got to give my pressure point to that film because today people are all up in arms about, the John Wick movies. Well, this is an ancestor of the John Wick movies. You can't tell me that John Wick was not inspired by Hard Boiled specifically. So especially that one sequence where it's all in one shot. That's pure John Wick, right? So Hard Boiled all the way on this one.
All right, Jared. I think that wraps up spectacle round. I'm going to pass it back to you so you can pass it back to me.
That must mean it's time for round 5.
Put the knife away and shut your mouth.
Round 5 is the best action scene, and I am indeed going to pass it back to Jason. He's going to break these down. Guess this is going to take about an hour and a half. So I don't know, man. How did you break down the action scenes for Hard Boiled? Let's just start there.
Let me take out my notes here. All right. Hard Boiled. Disclaimer, folks. There are little action scenes dispersed all throughout this thing, but basically, I tried to bunch them all up together. So I go tea house, the opening tea house fight. I call that one, let's just relax with a nice cup of tea and some soothing birds.
It's a very weird cultural element.
Then the next one is the warehouse fight. That's kind of the next big set action piece. I called that one, I forgot my men. Guess I forgot to tell him where the warehouse was. Because he had a whole bunch of men gearing up to go with him at one point, and then he was fighting by himself there in the end. So in my mind's eye, they're like, are we supposed to rendezvous?
What time are we supposed to be at the warehouse? They had the AM PM mix up. AM PM mix up.
Well, that one was kind of funny. Then there was the boat fight where Alan was ambushed on the boat, and the two of them ended up fighting off those baddies there. I called that one Shooting in the Morning Sun. I'll be shooting when the evening comes. There we go. And then we finally got, and I got to really do it this time because I got to flip it, the hospital fight. So I said at the end of it, some guy came out and said, would you be willing to take a phone survey to rate the quality of the service you received at our facility today?
2 stars maximum on that hospital.
So those are the ones that I had. And I know that the hospital one probably could have been broken out into about 3 different fights.
Yeah. I might have put the basement fight because it is the one martial arts fight. But, it's all one giant set piece.
I'm just running out of room on my...
I think you did good. And if I was to guess, I would say that just my guesswork, I'm ready to be proven wrong. I think we're all going to pick either tea house or hospital.
Okay.
Cisco, what was your favorite action scene?
The tea house thing has some iconic gun fu moments, and it cannot be denied. But The hospital shootout. I mean, when they come out flying out of the morgue drawers, that's where it starts, really. You know, after they come out of the basement flying, and then it's like when they're shooting across, there are 2 corridors, and they're shooting across, and Tony Leung actually got a piece of glass in the eye during that part, and you see it. You actually you see him react. So he got a whole day off from the shooting.
Man, he must have been really hurt.
And then all the stuff at the end with the baby, you know, it's like Chow Yun-fat has that very, very cute baby. We should have mentioned it in Spectacle, the cute baby. That's going to work on some people. Very adorable. And then it's like the baby has spatters of blood on him. And, you know, it's like he's sort of a hero because Chow Yun-fat, you know, tequila's on fire and the baby pees all over him. So extinguishing the fire. And then there's just like that whole sequence, the whole hospital thing just never lets go. It's got so many good parts to it. That's the one I would pick.
Yeah. I'm going to join you in the hospital. Jason, you going to join the hospital? You're going to go to that tea house?
Absolutely. We talked about it, that choreographed shotgun / machine gun run down the hallway, filmed in one take, just watching them move back and forth, the whole choreography, the physicality of it. That's the other thing about it. These gunfights, these fools are jumping through glass, tucking and rolling. They're sliding around. And their moves just always look so beautiful and graceful. I was trying to think of myself like trying to do that Tony Leung roll. I would have been like, oh, hold on, threw out my shoulder. Time out, okay?
Why? Time out. I said time out.
We can roll. We just can't get back up.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So, yeah, I'm going to go with the hospital as well.
All right, Jason, let's go to Sholay and break it down.
All right. Okay. I broke this down into 5 as well. So the first one was the train fight, which ended in the musical number. I called that one Broke Track Mountain because I was like, what are we watching here? The second one was the bunkhouse fight, where the inspector guy says, well, this was like your interview. I was seeing if you making sure that you were still up to the task.
Right.
So with that inspiration, I said, where do you see yourself in the future? Here's a hint. It's on the other side of this window. The third one was the party raid. That's the one where it was revealed that the inspector had lost his arm. So I called that one, Don't Shoot, I'm an Unarmed Man.
Kind of predicted that one.
Yeah, that was low-hanging fruit right there. Not my best work, but it was right there, you know. And then the other one was when Jai dies saving Viru. And you keep saying her name, and I keep forgetting it. Starts with a B. Basanti. I called that one Bridge on the River Jai.
Like, that's your best work so far.
Yeah. And then the last one was the revenge fight that starts with Vero, but it ends with the inspector, and I called that one, It's Time to Beat Feet.
Because he used his feet.
Because he used his feet.
Yeah, the foot fight.
Yeah.
Did pretty good. You know?
He did, man.
Pretty good.
I got to give him some moxie, too, because he was like, nah, it's my revenge. Well, you ain't got no arms, boss.
Was not about to let that put a damper on his day.
Yeah, I will bite him. I will kick him.
All right, Cisco, what was your favorite action scene?
Well, in a way, it's none of these, because the one that always stays with me, and you can say it's not an action scene if you want, but it's Basanti having to dance for the life of Viru. I think it's played like an action scene. It's tense. There's a gun tracked on him, and she drops down. The sun is coming, and then she gets back up. So to me, like, she also gets that fun kart race, just before, the horse is a pretty good character in this. So I like everything that Basanti does in this middle section, but let's say I go with the more traditional action pieces. The stuff with the bridge has some interesting bits, right? It's like they're crawling underneath the bridge and he sees the plank moving and eventually he dies in that moment. Some real bullets were used apparently during this scene. Almost took his head off, but it's like, what are you doing, people? But I mean, that's an important moment. It becomes very emotional. So maybe that's the one I would pick from this list.
I was kind of counting the dance scene as part of that because she had to dance until Viru was rescued, and then they made it to the bridge, and then
that whole section.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, Jared, you had a clever name for that one, I believe, with the glass.
Well, since she had to dance barefoot on broken glass, I called it Die Hard with the Virungens. Even though that's not the Die Hard movie where he walked on glass, it didn't work out.
Still works.
I'm not proud of that. Jason, what's your favorite action scene?
I like the train fight at the beginning quite a bit. That was really cool. The end, though, I'm going to go with Bridge on the River Jai as well.
Excellent. I would probably end up agreeing with you guys if I watched it again, but I'm actually going to give it to the train scene just because it was sort of that slap in the face. Like I really picked up on what Cisco was talking about with camera motion and effect. For 75, I was blown away by it. I was like, I sat up and was like, oh, because like we said, 3 hour and 20 minutes. I'm like, Cisco, son of a. And then the train scene happened. I was like, hey.
It's legit. It's a very good action piece. I agree.
Great.
Jared actually texted me as he was watching this, and he said, there's a really cool train opening on this movie. And then a few minutes later, he said, and now there's a musical question.
I did. I was like, live text. I was like, man, this train thing is legit. And now there's a musical number.
That's Bollywood.
And so it is. All right. So let's double back. Let's score. Jason, you, me, Cisco, we all picked the hospital fight 1 to 10.
I gave the overall spectacle a 9, but this hospital scene is a 10.
Flawless victory.
Match game. Yeah, this is a 10 action scene.
Flawless victory.
I mean, this is one of those, to me, I probably mentioned this in a previous episode, a 10 is one of those movies, action scenes where you just pop in the movie and skip and watch the scene. Like I do that with Blade, like I watch the bloodbath, and then I watch him beat Deacon Frost at the end. I do that all the time. So
that's exactly what I was thinking. It's like you'd mentioned it before with the bloodbath scene in Blade. There are just some that are so iconic. And this is one of them.
Like, I'll just watch that scene. So, yeah, I gave it a 10 as well. Over at Sholay, I like the train. You like the bridge on the River Jai. What did you score, your action scene there on the bridge?
I scored that one an 8. I thought that was nearing elite territory. And I was including the dance scene in that as well. So I thought that was really well done. Very tense moment. And it made me love Basanti. Now that I've heard it a million times, it's stuck in my mind. It made me love her that much more because she was in a bad spot, but she was not giving up for her man.
Also, very pretty. Don't know if you noticed. But yeah.
I did notice. And she came with her own donkey too. So, I mean, she
everything.
Got property. She got wheels.
She'll tell you she's not a chatterbox.
She's not?
Definitely not. For Sholay, I picked the train scene and I gave it a 7. I thought it was really good. It's one of those movies where I think I'd give a lot of scenes a 7. So it's definitely no slide on it. So we're not far apart on that, which means it is time for the very last pressure point from Siskoid. Which movie had better action scenes?
Well, no, it's Hard Boiled. Hard Boiled is just action, essentially. So it would be a travesty if it weren't getting this particular pressure point.
Understood. That is the end of round 5.
That'll be the day.
Oh, the deduction round. Yes, it is time for round 5, the round for the ridiculous, our deduction round. And this is where we can take up to 10 points off for anything that we thought was ridiculous and took us out of the movie. And I'll just pitch it over to you, Jared. Are you going to take any points off of either of these films?
Let's start with Hard Boiled, because you said for anything that's ridiculous. All right. 90% of the movie is ridiculous, but that's what you want from it.
Right. You know what I mean, though.
I considered doing a -1 on it because it didn't have what we actually lauded Robert Rodriguez and Desperado for doing. Because remember at the end of the shootouts in Desperado, he's covered in sweat and he's exhausted because you and I have been in literal firefights with our weapons, and that's how it is. Like, you're in a firefight for like 2 or 3 minutes and you are covered in sweat and you're just breathing. These guys, man, they look good when they're flipping around jumping through windows. They don't cover in sweat, they don't run out of breath. And I almost took a point off for that, but I was like, you know what, it's like a fantasy world. Like, I'm not going to hold.
Yeah.
If they were trying to do like a military accurate film, then I probably would have called them on it. But since it's sort of this fantastical world, long way of saying no, I'm not taking any points at Hardboiled. Sholay, kind of the same thing. It's ridiculous. It's supposed to be ridiculous. It's like, it's everything. No, I'm not taking anything off of it. There's parts that I was like, what? Like, we had like a 5-minute scene of him threatening to jump off of a water tower. And I was like, can we move on from this? But yet I couldn't look away. So, whatever. It's all good. So that is the longest response for no, I'm not taking any points away.
All right. I'm not taking any points off of either one either.
Cisco, do you have any airing of grievances?
Not really. I mean, I recommended these films, right? So no, you're absolutely right. They're in a hyper reality, both of these. So you can't say something is ridiculous. And at the same time, even the stuff that you think, when you say what, to me, that's a plus. Yeah. I've seen so many movies that when something surprises me, even if it's like unhinged, to me, it's like, well, you've shown me something I haven't seen before. And that's important to me. That's always a plus. And I think both these films at very different times, in the past 20 years or whenever I might have seen each of these have had that effect.
Well, that is going to bring us to the end of our official rounds. All right, folks, don't worry if you haven't been keeping up with the math at home. We do that for you at Action Film Face Off. And just real quick, looking at the match games, if you predicted 5 match games, then you were correct. And looking at the sniper points or the pressure points, as we talk about on MARCHial Arts, Siskoid gave 3 of his pressure points to Hardboiled and 2 to Sholay. And looking at the judges' scorecards, the winner of this episode of Action Film Face Off with a score of 83 to 75 is Hardboiled.
Well, congratulations to Hardboiled. Now let's head over to the randomizer and find out what the years are going to be for our next episode. My brother Jared will be pulling a film from
Choose Your Destiny.
1972. And I will bring a film from
Choose Your Destiny.
1994. Oh boy, what will those films be? Well, we'll tease them on social media for those of you who want to watch before listening, and we're talking to you, Dave. Or you can tune in next episode and find out. Until then, I'm Jason Weasel Skull Albrecht, and I'm kind of dabbling back in on social media at Instagram, at Jason Albrecht, at Instagram.
And you can find me, Jared Albrecht, the Yard Sale Artist, at Yard Sale Artist, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. It's all at Yard Sale Artist. You can check out my wares at www.theyardsaleartist.com. I am willing to ship to Canada. Siskoid, where can people find you on those internets?
Well, for podcasting, it's fireandwaterpodcast.com. I own every Tuesday, so a variety of things on comic books and Star Trek and Hamlet, role-playing games, whatever. There's nothing that I won't talk about if it's geek related. And if you like writing, some people like just reading. Siskoid's blog of geekery is something I do every day, so there's a lot of material there as well. I hit my 10,000th post the other day, so
proud of you, man.
That is impressive.
Or sickening, but
whatever. Pick your adjective.
Yeah, pick your adjective. It's kind of insane, but it happened. So, but yeah, please drop by.
Well, listen, I can't recommend Siskoid enough. He's a great guy. I've been following him on the Twitters for many years. I've been to some of his shows. He's been on some of ours. You're always welcome here at Action Film Face Off. We look forward to March because we know you're going to be here and you're going to bring us some great stuff, and you've never let us down. So thanks for being here, my friend.
Absolutely.
Always a pleasure.
All right. Well, be sure to check out all the shows under the Longbox Crusade umbrella by subscribing to Longbox Crusade on your podcatcher of choice, or you can check us out at www.longboxcrusade.com. Of course, if you have questions or comments or anything like that, you can head over to social media and look at Longbox Crusade, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. It's all at Longbox Crusade. Or you can leave us a voicemail at 707-532-5269. That's 707-532-LBOX.
Pick up the phone.
You wouldn't have missed that. Thank you guys for tuning in. We appreciate you listening. Until next episode, keep your head down
and your knuckles up.
Watch out.
The intro and outro theme to this show and all of our Action Film Face-Off shows are done by musical genius Joe November. Check out his SoundCloud at JOSEFLIN99. You will not regret it.
I'm going to go on mute and we're going to start. We're going to get to it. We're going to be those people. Let's go.
Oh, we're going to be professional tonight, I guess.
Well, like we're going to guess at what professionals might do.
Let's try that for a change. See how we like it.
You know?
Looking up drama masks.
You know, it's like when is comedy, when is tragedy.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, gotcha.
The two theater masks. Yeah.
Two theater. The Motley Crue cover. Got it. All right.
There you go.
Said the Motley Crue.